And we're back for our PFL Belfast predictions this Thursday from Belfast, Northern Ireland. In the main event, Darragh Kelly takes on JJ Wilson. Originally a fight supposed to be main evented by Paul Hughes and JJ Wilson. In comes Darragh Kelly instead to put his undefeated record on the line, and by far the toughest fight he's ever had, again against JJ Wilson in the main event. We've got 12 fights on this card from Ireland and Northern Ireland. And folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more PFL predictions here on the channel. Last week we dominated the PFL, and we've dominated PFL throughout this entire year. So looking for more of that same success this week. Earlier in the week on the channel yesterday, we posted our UFC Fight Night Winnipeg predictions with Gilbert Burns and Mike Malott in the main event. So go check those out. Main channel Greedo plays daily MLB and daily NBA best bets. Okay, let's go. First of our 12 fights this Thursday from Belfast, Northern Ireland. We kick things off with a fight between two 1-0 fighters. I don't know if this is going to be the first fight in the card, but I'm just going to get it out the way right now, as we've got Egan Masoliver versus Shane Mullen. Okay, this is a traditional PFL throwaway bout early on the card. It's not entirely a throwaway fight, but it's more so there's a guy who's supposed to win in this fight, and that's going to be Egan Pablo's his nickname, Masoliver. I think he's going to win. This is a fighter who went 12-3 as an amateur and won his first professional fight in March. He's taken on Shane Mullen, and you can just tell by both these guys' resumes how PFL is hyping each one on the social, or the lack thereof hype on each fighter on socials. Egan Masoliver is going to win the fight. Did I call him Egan? Egan Masoliver is going to win. He's going to win the fight, and he's going to likely win via a finish. Shane Mullen is also 1-0 as a professional fighter. His first fight, he'd be a 1-5 fighter back in June of 2025. His only reported amateur fights, there's 6 of them. He went 2-4. Again, amateur fights don't really matter. They don't matter. They're just for experience. But one fighter in the amateur ranks went 12-3. The other went 2-4. I think you know where I'm going in terms of a pick in this fight. I'm going to take Egan Masoliver to win. The only question is, how does he win? Well, from what I have seen, he's got grappling. He has some striking as well. I think the striking is probably the pathway of least resistance in this bout. I really think he can do whatever he wants in this bout, but they put 2 Irish guys against each other in the bantamweight division. You're guaranteed to get a victor, a winner here who's from Ireland early in the card, but ultimately, right, there is always a direction the PFL wants to go to in a fight like this. We've seen this obviously throughout Bellator and PFL, and these fighters that the Professional Fighters League sign when they're just debuting, for example, AJ McKee, obviously. JJ Wilson only fought in Bellator before obviously making a main event, getting into main events and getting big time fights. I'm not telling you that Egan Masoliver is going to be, a prime time main event fighter, but this is what they've done. This is what the PFL and Bellator, the directions they've gone with fighters. I expect him to easily finish Shane Mullen. I'm going to go first round knockout. There's a reason both these guys are on this card. It's because, well, Masoliver is supposed to win and he's supposed to get a finish. Shane Mullen, again, lost 4 times as an amateur and only fought once in mixed martial arts as a pro. Same thing we said about his opponent, but he's getting thrown out to the wolves. I'm going Masoliver. Why is his nickname Pablo? I don't know, but I'm going to take him to win by first round knockout. Okay, we got that fight out the way between 2 1-0 guys. Let's move on to our second fight of the night, and it's in the flyweight division. Chelsea Hackett takes on Andrea Vazquez. Now, I'm going to get this out of the way too. Don't have betting odds yet. I'm recording this video very early Monday morning. Last week, which was a first, we actually had odds early in the week for PFL. We used to a long time ago, like back in the days when they actually had the season format, so you could obviously, or even the tournament last year, I don't know why, the tournament last year, that format, we wouldn't get odds until late in fight week, but last year, I guess 2 years ago when they still had the point system tournament, we'd always have odds early for PFL. Now we don't. Like you can bet on a UFC card, 2 months from now. You can bet on Kyoji Horiguchi versus Manel Kape if you want to right now. That fight's not happening until June for the UFC, but obviously PFL, the odds don't, really come out till Thursday. But last week, for some reason, we had them early in the week. This week, we don't. So the odds I have on the scene are on the screen, are just Tapology votes. So, for example, here, in terms of the Tapology voters, 85% of them are picking the Mexican Andrea Vazquez, and only 15% are taking the Australian and Chelsea Hackett. So, on to our second fight of the night, Hackett versus Vazquez. Chelsea Hackett, you may be familiar with her because of her PFL fights or her chance on the Contender Series back in 2020. She was a favorite to beat Victoria Leonardo. She was a -300 favorite. She was billed as a really high-level kickboxer, and she lost. She couldn't grapple. Leonardo beat the shit out of her on the ground and eventually TKO'd her after taking Hackett down. Hackett obviously does not get signed to the UFC, obviously, but she was a minus 300 favorite, kind of showing you what, the hype I guess she had around her at the time. Goes to the PFL, fights 3 years later, beats Kai Bennett by second round submission. By the way, Chelsea Hackett, when she was on the Contender Series, was 20 years old. Now she's 26. She's fought 3 times in the PFL. She wins a fight in 2023 against Kai Bennett. They then immediately put her into the final season of the PFL back when they had a regular season. I actually am probably the only person in the world who liked that format. Chelsea Hackett loses her first fight. No surprise to Jenna Bishop because she doesn't have a ground game. And then obviously Dakota Ditcheva beat her. Again, that's why they went away from the tournament formats, because you were able to easily match make, your 1 and 2 fighters against fighters 7 and 8 to make sure, 9 and 10, to ensure that they make the playoffs. Anyways, though, Hackett fights Bishop, first round submission. Bishop picked up a huge win last week, and Hackett then fights Dakota Ditcheva and gets knocked out in the first round. She has not fought since June of 2024. We've seen long stretches of inactivity throughout the career of Hackett, again, going from her Contender Series loss in 2020 all the way to her next fight in 2023. Same can be said about losing to Ditcheva in 2024. Did not fight in 2025. Here she is in 2026. She's fighting Andrea Vazquez. Vazquez 8-2 as a professional fighter. She is the Lux fighting champion currently at strawweight. Obviously now making her PFL debut about a year after her last bout. She's coming up from 115, obviously fighting at 125. The PFL just doesn't really have 115. They don't do fights at strawweight. But I expect Andrea Vazquez to win. From what I've seen out of Andrea Vazquez, she can grapple, she has jiu-jitsu, and she can wrestle you. That's a problem for Chelsea Hackett. Yes, again, she won a fight, and her only win in PFL is by submission. Do not let that fool you. She's not a very good grappler, and she struggles on the mat. If you take her down, she struggles to get back up, and with her trying to get up, she's going to expose her back, and fighters have been able to take her back and obviously submit her. Or in the case of Victoria Leonardo was just able to punch her until Hackett had to quit. I think Andrea Vazquez should win. I think Chelsea Hackett, I don't know, from what I remember from the Contender Series, they made a really big deal out of Chelsea Hackett's dad, who was her trainer. I don't think they brought her up the right way. In terms of mixed martial arts, obviously. There could have been easier paths for her. She should have stayed on the regional scene a little bit longer. Right? She was 20 years of age. She had won 3 fights in Eternal MMA. She was a big favorite to get a UFC contract, didn't get it, and then immediately went to PFL. No, she should have gone to Eternal or back to Eternal. She should have gone to Hex, won more fights, and then by right now at 26, you should be going to the PFL, not your 4th PFL fight at 26 years of age, and you have a chance to now go to 500 at 4-4-1. I absolutely hate it. Andrea Vazquez 8-2 as a professional. She will likely grapple Chelsea Hackett this entire fight, and Andrea Vazquez should win a decision. I would not be surprised if she pulls off the sub, but I'm going to go decision victory for the Mexican fighter in Andrea Vazquez. On to our third fight of the night, we move to a matchup in the welterweight division as David Martinez, no, not the UFC's David Martinez, the Australian Smiling Assassin is his nickname. David Martinez takes on the Greek fighter from MMA Masters over in Florida, Yanis Bachar. Yanis Bachar, 35 years of age, former UFC Ultimate Fighter, competitor, I guess we can say, taking on PFL debuting David Martinez, who I was reading articles about how David Martinez felt, or at least, I guess just Australians in regional MMA felt that David Martinez was getting snubbed to be in the UFC, and people were surprised that David Martinez hadn't gotten a call to at least fight on the Contender Series, because this is a fighter who, is the Eternal MMA champion, or was the Eternal MMA champion before signing with the PFL. And usually, if you're the champion in Eternal or Hex and you put together a bunch of victories, especially Eternal, you're eventually going to get that call to fight in the Contender Series. But David Martinez never got that call into the UFC. Instead, he gets the call to the PFL. But this is a fighter who won the Eternal MMA Championship back in 2025 at welterweight, then defended again in late in 2025. Again, never got his call to the Contender Series, now making his PFL debut right here. From what I've seen out of David Martinez, he's got really good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling, more good wrestling. He can find your back and get a submission. Striking, not horrible as well. And he's got power. Again, a guy who may not be the most technically skilled in the feet, but he can put you away. Yanis Bachar struggles with fighters who hit hard, I will tell you. Back-to-back fights for him where he got TKO'd / knocked out. He got knocked out in 20 seconds to Robert Valentin in his first round fight on The Ultimate Fighter. Valentin, by the way, fights this week against Julien LeBlanc in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We had I believe, an insightful prediction on that one, so go check out our UFC Winnipeg predictions if you have not yet. But Bachar loses to Valentin on the the Ultimate Fighter, and then goes and fights in the PFL tournament in 2025, loses to Masayuki Karuki. It's a TKO doctor/corner stoppage at the end of the second round. Bachar was getting the shit beat out of him. He lost. Okay. Good strikers will be able to put this guy away. I like Martinez's grappling game, but I do think he's, good enough on the feet as well. If that's the pathway he chooses against Bachar, he will likely have it. I will say, again, that if Martinez just stands in front of Bachar, I think he'll win. I think he will outstrike this guy, but that's the only hope you do give him. I'm going to tell you that. I think because Bashar's only chance in this fight is to land a bomb, but from what I've seen out of Bachar, and again, it is just mostly the Karuki fight, because the Karuki's his, second loss, I guess, in the last 10 years. He got knocked out by Valentin. From what I've seen out of Bachar, again, if you're able to just put volume on him, he just kind of relies on that big shot to try to put you away, and he's just trying to, again, find that one shot. I think if Martinez is able to overwhelm him on the feet, I do believe he eventually gets him out of there. I'm going to pick TKO victory for David Martinez because, again, that operates in two different ways. If it's a takedown for Martinez and it's ground and pound, we hit on that, as well as, obviously, if it's just a volume striking effort out of Martinez against Bachar and he gets him out of there on the feet, we hit as well on the TKO. I would not be surprised, I will tell you, by a submission. Bachar has lost four times, in his pro MMA career. The two losses he took early in his career were both by submission. The last two fights that he's had, obviously both knockout L's. I will go with the trend with him continuously getting knocked out and TKO'd, but I wouldn't be shocked even if Martinez just finds the takedown, takes his back, and subs him. Either way, I do believe David Martinez is going to have it pretty easy in this fight. Obviously, again, the Tapology voters do not replicate the actual odds on the fight, but I do expect David Martinez to be quite a big favorite in this one. I'm going to go Martinez to win by second round TKO. I think eventually he will get Bachar out of there. I don't know if that's going to be grappling and ground strikes, or that's just going to be volume on the feet, but I will be going with David Martinez to pick up the win. I will tell you, Yanis Bachar will be the way bigger fighter. David Martinez has fought at 55 and is a 55 fighter. He's coming up to 70 to fight this fight. Bachar's 6'1", Martinez 5'9". Regardless, I still believe Martinez wins. As long as he doesn't get KO'd, Martinez wins the fight by second round TKO. On to our next fight in the welterweight division. It is the PFL debut of Omran Chaaban, the Lebanese gorilla who now trains and I believe lives, or I think he's always lived in Finland, but he is of Lebanese descent, as you see here with his half Lebanese, half Finland flag. Or I guess he's just got both of those. Okay, that's cool. Chaaban is making his PFL debut on Thursday against Chiquinho Nosso Pedro. Nosso Pedro coming off of the biggest win of his career in his last fight. It's a fight in which, let's just say, Chiquinho Nosso Pedro is supposed to get knocked out. He's taking on Khamzat Abayev, who is an undefeated 5-0 fighter going into it. I picked Abayev to get Nosso Pedro out of there early, and Nosso Pedro withstands the early attacks of Abayev and just kind of breaks him as the fight goes on. Really weighs on him, or kind of starts just wearing on Abayev with his wrestling, with his grappling, takes him down multiple times in the fight, pushes the fight back up against the fence, and just makes it a dirty fight. Now, that fight was listed, and that fight was, marketed as great striker versus great grappler. I wasn't, I'm not too mad at the striking game of Chiquinho Nosso Pedro. I don't think he looked that bad on the feet. Obviously, yes, he's a primary grappler out of Holland or out of the Netherlands. Again, he wants to take you down. I did not think, honestly, the striking looked that bad at Nosso Pedro, and I will tell you, I was really impressed with his victory. Now, how good is Abayev truly? Because, again, that was his big step up. He had won all of his fights in the regional scene, and now he gets to fight in the PFL. Hey, again, I don't know how good Abayev's truly going to be, but it's a great victory for Nosso Pedro in his second PFL fight. He once fought in PFL back, I believe it was in France in 2024 against Ibrahim Mane. He had lost by split decision, comes back, picks up a win against Khamzat Abayev, and now he gets the PFL debuting Omran Chaaban. I will tell you, I don't believe Chaaban should be this big of a favorite. Again, these are not the odds for the fight, but I do believe, again, if you want to look at it in this sense, I believe Chiquinho Nosso Pedro has better than a 10% chance to win the fight. However, Omran Chaaban kind of does have the fight style to beat Nosso Pedro. Good grappling and should be slightly better on the feet against compared to Pedro as well. Omran Chaaban is a grappler for the most part, 4 submission victories in the past, has won multiple fights in the past in UAE Warriors by submission. This is a fighter who was the UAE Warriors welterweight champion at one point in time, did fight in the Ultimate Fighter. That made him obviously vacate the UAE Warriors championship. He won a fight in his first fight in the Ultimate Fighter against Shamikan Magomedov. He won the fight by anaconda choke in the second round, then eventually lost to the eventual winner of the Ultimate Fighter season 32 in Ryan Loder. Comes back to UAE Warriors, wins a couple fights, and now here he is in his PFL debut. But again, the grappling is really great. The jiu-jitsu and the chokes are good out of Chaaban. And that's where, okay, if Pedro looks to take him down, does Chaaban win down there? And again, how good was Noso Pedro's last opponent truly? And on the feet too, I do believe Omran Chaaban does have an advantage because Noso Pedro will look to grapple. I think he'll look to wrestle. And I think, neither guy is great on the feet, but I do think the Lebanese gorilla and the Finnish Omran Chaaban will have that striking advantage. Chaaban also should be the bigger fighter in this one. But again, I will tell you, I am very impressed with Noso Pedro's last performance. I'm incredibly impressed. Crowd was not having it. Crowd was not happy that Noso Pedro pulled off the upset, but he did. So Pedro talks his shit at the end of the fight, climbs the octagon or climbs the smart cage and starts, trash talking fans. I was impressed by his performance, but I do believe this is a fight set up for Omran Chaaban to win just because of the fight style. How does Noso Pedro really win this fight? Striking-wise, I'm going to give the slight edge to Chaaban. Wrestling-wise, I will give it to Noso Pedro. Grappling-wise, I will give it to Omran Chaaban. I don't even know if I can give the pure wrestling to Noso Pedro either. I do believe Omran Chaaban wins. I think this is just a fight to propel him, obviously, against a guy who, picked up a huge win against an undefeated prospect in his last bout. Now it's the time for this new prospect in Chaaban, who's obviously fought in the Ultimate Fighter before, to pick up a win. Omran Chaaban picks up his first win in the PFL by unanimous decision. On to our next bout as we move to the lightweight division, two veterans in Pedro Carvalho versus Sergio Cossio. Originally, Sergio Cossio was booked against the main event fighter in Darragh, obviously with Paul Hughes falling out of the main event with a knee injury. Darragh fills his spot, and now Sergio Cossio gets Pedro Carvalho. A little surprised Carvalho's still fighting. I say that with the utmost respect. It's just Carvalho's the definition of a 50-50 fighter, but as of late, it's just been a lot of losses for Carvalho. He is coming off of a win, but that's not in PFL He had lost 4 consecutive fights under the PFL/Bellator banner. I guess they cut him because he goes and fights in 2025. Did not fight in the PFL in 2025, fought twice in the PFL in 2024, goes out to WNC in 2025, beats Damian Lapulus by first round rear naked choke. That's great, awesome, and now the PFL decides to bring him back, I believe. Well, it is on short notice, obviously, because obviously Cossio is supposed to fight and supposed to lose, by the way, to Darragh. Carvalho's back. His 4-fight losing streak in PFL was Jeremy Kennedy, Aaron Pico TKO'd him, Brent Loughran in the PFL 2024 regular season, and then a loss to now, once again, UFC fighter in Kai Kamaka III. Sergio Cossio has been solid recently. He's been okay. Lost to Dedrick Sanders. He missed weight in that fight. Dedrick Sanders knocked him out in the first round. But I will say, I think Dedrick Sanders is actually pretty good. Did lose to Zainikov in PFL after, but I do think Dedrick Sanders is actually okay. I know he's 36, so he's not a prospect, but losing to Dedrick Sanders, again, a fight you probably want to win, but I didn't hate it. It was a fight that Cossio took on short notice after he beat Anthony Romero, wanted to get right back in there, and he got knocked out, whatever. Last fight for Sergio Cossio was against Jacob Kazuba. Lost the fight by decision. Kazuba, good fighter, what can I say, right? Last fight for Kazuba, beat Natan Schultz. We told you he was going to win as an underdog, didn't understand the odds for that one. Regardless, Cossio is coming off back-to-back L's. He has not won a fight since June of 2024. Yeah, it's kind of brutal, but again, the guy was on a run at the time, had won a fight in 2023 in Bellator, beat Anthony Romero, who was a highly touted prospect at the time by unanimous decision. And by the way, we have not seen Anthony Romero since. Where is this guy? I mean, this was a legit Canadian prospect. He beat Mike Breeden on the Contender Series. Breeden eventually winded up in the UFC. Romero didn't. Romero comes to the PFL, loses to Olivier Aben-Mercier, who was a huge favorite to fight Cossio, and he lost a decision. He was a minus 500 favorite to beat Cossio, and the guy hasn't fought since. Where is Anthony Romero? Does he fight anymore? But again, that's what, I immediately associate Sergio Cossio's PFL run with that fight. Yes, he's lost back-to-back bouts going into this one, but I do expect him to beat Pedro Carvalho. Pedro Carvalho, his face is kind of a punching bag. I will say his grappling is not bad. Sergio Cossio's grappling is good enough as well. I do believe it's going to be a stand-up fight because I believe, both unks are going to let Carvalho's 30. It's just he's been so many fights. I feel like he's way older than that. I feel like both of the grappling games are going to kind of cancel each other out here, and I do think we see pretty much just a striking fight. And in a striking fight, I'm going Sergio Cossio. Pedro Carvalho, again, went on his little run in Bellator prior to eventually getting to fight Patricio Pitbull, in which was essentially a 1 versus 8 matchup in the Bellator tournament at 145 pounds back in 2020, when, again, Patricio Pitbull said, I want number 1 easy fight. I want Pedro Carvalho, because they let him pick his opponent. Fun stuff, but I'm going to go Sergio Cossio here. Again, Carvalho legitimately has not been the same since Pitbull knocked him out in the span of 2 minutes in a fight that should not have been made, but they did it anyways. And it's really just affected the career out of Carvalho since. He randomly picked up a win against Mads Burnell, but you know, Mads Burnell is just kind of washed now, but Burnell did win a couple fights after the Carvalho loss, so it's weird. Now, obviously, he's lost back-to-back to Watley and J.J. Wilson, but that's neither here or there. I'm going Sergio Cossio to beat Pedro Carvalho. I believe Cossio is going to win the bout by decision. I believe we're going to see a lot of striking, and I do think that's where Cossio wins. So I'm going with the Mexican to win this fight, in Sergio Cossio. On to our next bout, we move to a matchup in the bantamweight division between Sean Gauci and Liam Gittins. Gauci, a pretty sizable favorite, at least on Tapology. We can expect him to, again, likely be a favorite when the betting odds come out. Gauci, 10-1 Australian fighter. I believe he's Australian, or is he New Zealand? He's Australian. 10-1 Australian fighter. Has appeared on the Contender Series and won on the Contender Series in 2024. Do not know about his inactivity in 2025 because, again, the guy just did not fight in 2025. But the last time we saw him in an octagon, in a cage fighting, was against Anthony Drillich back in 2024 in a fight in which he won by unanimous decision. This is a fighter who, was the Hex flyweight champion before fighting on the Contender Series at 125 pounds. Now that he's in Bellator, obviously Bellator does not do flyweight MMA, at least for the men. So he's going to be fighting at 135 here against the British nightmare Liam Gittins. Gittins, the former Cage Warriors champion, won the belt over Reese McEwen and then ended up beating and defending the belt against Roberto Hernandez. Eventually, though, had to drop the belt because he came to PFL, fought Taylor Lapulus in his first fight in PFL, lost by unanimous decision, and now here comes the prospect in Sean Gauci. It's an interesting fight, I will tell you, and again, it's like the Noso Pedro fight earlier. I don't believe Gauci should be this big of a favorite. I don't believe so. I don't believe he should be again, these are not the betting odds, but I don't believe, if you want to take this in terms of, okay, say Gauchi's got a 90% chance of winning the fight because 90% of people are picking him, I don't believe it entirely goes that way for this fight. I expect him to win, don't get me wrong, but I do think it's going to be somewhat of a tough scrap. Again, this is a fighter who's only fought at 125 pounds throughout his career. I don't believe he's ever fought at 135 pounds. He's been fighting pro MMA since 2014, which is crazy when you think about he's 29. So, yeah, he's been around MMA for a very long time. He's been around for a minute. I guess started fighting when he was 16, 17. Why not? Right? This is an experienced guy for his age at 29. Liam Gittins, though, I do believe is going to drag him into tough waters. And again, I think Gauci wins, but Gittins is not bad. He's lost a lot, but a lot of those losses come early in his career in Cage Warriors in like 2020 and 2021. He went on a little bit of a run, won the Cage Warriors championship, defended it once, and now again, here he is in PFL. And just because he lost to Taylor Lapulus, guys, a lot of bantamweights, lose to Taylor Lapulus, right? Ask Kasim Kasimov how that goes. Jake Hadley's going to get Taylor Lapulus in Brussels next month. That's going to be a very difficult fight for Hadley as well. So I'm not too down on Gittins. I think Gauchi's going to win, but to say I'm confident in it, I can't. I expect it to be a striking fight, and I expect Gauci to win, but what happens if Gittins goes into war mode and forces, again, a high-volume fight at Sean Gauci? Maybe Gauchi's up for the test, and maybe he survives that, and I'm expecting him to win the bout. But again, I would not completely write off the nightmare and Liam Gittins in this one. I know he loses to Lapulus, but again, a lot of fighters would lose to Taylor Lapulus at this point in time, just because, again, Lapulus is just a crafty veteran that knows how to win 3 rounds. Sometimes it's not the most entertaining, but I mean, hell, his last fight was a knockout win, so, what do I know? I'm going to go Sean Gauci to win the fight by decision. Again, I would not count out Liam Gittins at all, though, for this fight. On to our next one. We move to the welterweight division as the Ukrainian-American in Chris Mixan. I don't know, PFL has given him the Ukrainian flag, which I guess, I'm pretty sure he still trains in the U.S., but okay, whatever. The Ukrainian-American in Cossack, Chris Mixan, takes on Ion Sheridan in this fight. Chris Mixan, 7-1 prospect, taking on the 4-0 prospect in Ion Sheridan. Very rare that the PFL actually puts 2 prospects against each other. Like, I'll tell you one I remember from back in the day. This is Bellator, but still. Romero Cotton versus Dalton Rosta, right? Like, that was a prospect versus prospect at the time. Going really well for Dalton Rosta right now in the PFL, isn't it? How about Impa Kasanganai, man? That's my guy. Anyways, you get two prospects, though, going at it in Chris Mixan and Ian Sheridan. Sheridan, 4-0 as a pro and has fought twice so far in the PFL back in 2024 and 2025. Chris Mixan, this will be his fourth bout in the PFL Smart Cage. Now, he has had, he has had different stints in the PFL, I guess, if you want to call it. I mean, I don't entirely know how PFL is, doing contracts with these guys, because you see a lot of fighters, and how I guess Pedro Carvalho is an example of that as well. You see them, have a couple fights in PFL, and then they'll be out of PFL for a year. They'll take a couple fights in the regional scene. They'll win those fights, and all of a sudden they're back in the PFL. Hell, Alexander Romanov, who picked up a huge win over Rodrigo Nascimento last week in Chicago on a card where I don't think many people watched because it was at the same time as the UFC, but whatever. Like, he had a fight outside the PFL and came right back and picked up a win over Nascimento. So I don't entirely know how the PFL is doing all these contracts. But anyways, Mixon's a guy who's had, multiple stints in the PFL, if that's what you want to call it, right? Comes into the PFL back in 2022, wins on the Challenger Series and earns a contract on the Challenger Series, and then fights again in 2022, wins by split decision, and then winds up back on the regional scene. Fights in All In Combat, goes 1-1 in the region on that regional promotion, does lose to Tristan Vines, who is, yes, now in the UFC. Vines, obviously, first fight in the promotion for him did not go well. He fought Atiba Gutierrez in a fight in which Vines was the biggest underdog in UFC history, or at least one of the biggest underdogs in UFC history. But again, Mixon did lose to him by decision. Went to LFA, won a fight, and then came back and appeared in PFL once more in 2025, beating Kenley St. Louis by first round TKO. So he's back, again fighting Ian Sheridan. Mixon 7-1 as a professional. Sheridan 4-0, made his PFL debut back in 2024, won a fight by unanimous decision in PFL Europe, then won again in 2025, beat Malachi Edwards by first round knockout, but then again does not fight again in PFL. His last fight came in AFC, won a fight over Felipe Maya by first round rear naked choke submission, and now again welcome him back to the PFL Smart Cage for this fight in 2026. So you get two fighters again who the PFL has booked before. Both guys are undefeated in the promotion. I believe we're going to get a striking fight in this one. I do believe both fighters are going to be willing to throw the hands. If anything, I do believe Ian Sheridan, if anyone shoots, I do believe is going to be the Irish fighter in Sheridan that will go first. This is an SBG Ireland guy. Obviously, you're going to see a good amount of fighters on this card from SBG Ireland. You're going to see Darragh Kelly in the main event, Ciaran Clarke later on the card. But regardless, I think Sheridan's a pretty good prospect. I just fear that this might be too much. It's your fifth pro fight, and you're getting Chris Mixon, who can punish you on the feet. But the thing about Ian Sheridan is he's 6'5" for welterweight. Man. You know what? I'm going Ian Sheridan. I'm going to take a shot on Ian Sheridan here. I think because, again, this is going to be a stand-up fight, and I do look back at the Chris Mixon loss to Tristan Vines. And yeah, Tristan Vines is a UFC fighter, and I don't know, the caliber of which Tristan Vines is going to be in the UFC. He lost his first bout by first-round knockout, but it's Atiba Gutierrez who continues to squash contender series / regional scene guys in his UFC, tenure. But I think, honestly, Sheridan's going to be able to win. He's at home in Ireland. This is a 6'5", 6'5" welterweight. Didn't have a great, amateur run, but I think he wins here. I really think so. I think he puts it on Mixon early. I do think we see both these guys trade. I know Mixon's a lot more experienced and picked up a win against Kenley St. Louis, but he was a plus 250 dog in that fight. So again, obviously not expected to win it. Kenley St. Louis then took Lazy King to a split decision. I feel like Lazy King's been so underwhelming recently. But anyways, I'm going to take Ian Sheridan to win. I feel like this is the fighter PFL wants to win. They're in Ireland. I'm going to go Sheridan and pull off the upset. I'm going to go first round knockout for Ian Sheridan. Call me crazy, but I do believe the 6'5" SBG Ireland product will pull off a victory here in the first round against Chris Mixon. On to our next fight at bantamweight. We've got the credentialed Kellen Loughran taking on Alan Philpott, who I guess is even more credentialed. This is a fight set up for Kellen Loughran to win. Do I need to say more? Loughran, 10-3 as a professional, taking on the 21-17 Alan Philpott, nickname Super Ali. Why is this fight happening? Sorry, I just don't know. I mean, it's a typical PFL wants a guy to get a win fight, so Loughran's going to pick up an easy victory. That's all it is. Alan Philpott has fought once before in the PFL. It was his last fight against Lewis McGrillen-Evans, who is another fighter that the PFL does like quite a bit. Obviously, former champion in the PFL, was the 2024 PFL champ, PFL Europe champ. And again, I question PFL's booking a lot because, again, McGrillen-Evans wins the title in 2024 and then comes back in 2025 just to fight Alan Philpott. He's the reigning champion, and you bring him back for a co-main event in 2025. He's under Paul Hughes. He's not fighting in the season anymore, but he's fighting a fighter who's 21-17. And expectedly, Lewis McGrillen takes him down and submits him in the second round. McGrillen was booked to fight Loughran in October of 2025. Fight did not happen. Instead, Loughran went on to fight Jack Cartwright, and he lost. Oh. As a minus 500 favorite, Loughran's now coming off an L. His UFC tenure was not bad. 2-2, came into the promotion, fought in France, played the whole, villain persona against Taylor Lapulus. Did lose, but again, he was the Cage Warriors champion coming into that fight. Beat Angel Pacheco, who's obviously not very good because he's from the New England Cartel. Then lost to Jake Hadley, and then beat Nathan Fletcher, and they got rid of him, or at least the UFC just did not renew the contract of Callum Loughran. And he's supposed to beat Cartwright again, was in a really big spot against Lewis McGrillen, a fight that I thought was going to be really close going into it, and who knows if that fight ever happens, but again, Loughran loses to Cartwright. So now you get Philpott, who McGrillen, they're not even calling him Evans anymore, who Lewis McGrillen just beat. Sure, why not? I think Callum Loughran, again, will have this fight and will win this fight any way he wants it. The question is, will he win by knockout, will he win by decision, or will he win by submission? I'm going sub for Callum Loughran. Why? Loughran's not a pure grappler. It's not really what he does, but if you want to make a statement, this guy doesn't know how to grapple. Okay, he obviously knows how to grapple, but he's not a great grappler as Alan Philpott. 21-17 as a pro. 15 of the 17 losses are by submission. And again, we just saw it in his last bout against Lewis McGrillen. And Callum Loughran is used to beating up on, cans. Early in his professional mixed martial arts career, his first two fights were against an 0-31 fighter and an 0-39 fighter. How are these legal? How do you let a guy fight? He's lost 39 times and you say, yeah, let him go fight a 40th time. Whatever. But Loughran's used to the spot. Again, right? Beat a fighter who's 0-39 and 0-31. Why not? He'll beat Alan Philpott, who's got a slightly better record at 21-17. I'm not, again, attacking the fighter for fighting these bums in the regional scene. And again, I don't really mind it for Loughran. Those are your first two fights in your career. I don't mind that you're fighting the 0-41 guys. Get your wins where you can get them. He did fight some really good guys in Cage Warriors. And again, I'm not going to attack Loughran for his regional career. He was great. I was really hyped up about him when he got into the UFC. I still think he can be a pretty solid prospect. Just product. He's not a prospect anymore. But this is the fight to get him back on the winning track. I have to imagine PFL's at least thinking about making that Loughran and McGrillen fight again, and that's what they're doing by letting him fight and letting him beat Alan Philpott. I know, again, Loughran doesn't always look for submissions, but he's a kickboxer, I understand, but man, if you want to win very early in this fight, why give Alan Philpott a chance? His chance is on the feet. Grappling, the guy will easily be submitted. I'm going to go Callum Loughran to win the fight by first round sub. I mean, if you, again, maybe makes it difficult on himself and he tries to, knock this dude out, and he probably will eventually, but I'm going to go submission. It's the easiest pathway to victory. Callum Loughran finally gets back on the right track, first round sub over Sydney, Australia's own in Alan Philpott. On to our next fight. Let's go to a matchup between SBG Ireland's Ciaran Clarke as he will be taking on Dean Garnett. It's a fight that Ciaran Clarke should be able to win. I mean, again, it's an SBG Ireland type of night. SBG Ireland historically has taken over these PFL Europe, or at least PFL Ireland and Bellator Ireland cards, and well, we're seeing it yet again. More so, the Bellator Ireland cards, because that's where, again, Ciaran Clarke and Darragh Kelly continued to win every single time Bellator went to Europe and went to Ireland. It felt like Clarke and Kelly were on these cards, and obviously combined, these two SBG Ireland fighters are 19-0. Both fighters will look to add to their undefeated records on Thursday night, and I do expect Ciaran Clarke to easily roll through Dean Garnett. Now, Dean Garnett, again, credentialed fighter, experienced fighter. 14-4-1 is the professional mixed martial arts career for Dean Garnett. Fought Lewis McGrillen back in PFL in Europe in 2024, beat Tomas Grunwald back in 2025 in PFL Europe, beat Jan Steplowski by third round submission as well, ended up fighting Baris Agil for the PFL Bantamweight Tournament Championship in 2025, lost by first round knockout in 44 seconds. Again, lost to Betis in the first round. Betis is fighting Gustavo Oliveira in Brussels. I didn't know if he had a fight booked or not. Anyways, Ciaran Clarke will make quick work out of Dean Garnett. Now, I don't know if I can say quick work. He will win, and it'll look somewhat easy. Because I do believe Ciaran Clarke is just a better fighter in general, and I do believe where Ciaran Clarke wants to fight, obviously on the ground, he will be able to out-control Dean Garnett. The better question you may need to ask here is, can Ciaran Clarke find a way to a finish? Can he find a way to a submission? Because Dean Garnett is a good jiu-jitsu player in his own right. He's got 6 submission victories of his own now. He has been submitted twice as well. However, those submissions came back in 2017, so not really too concerned about that one. One of those submission losses, by the way, come from Magomed Magomedov, who's fighting in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in a couple weeks for the PFL as well against Leandro Higo. But anyways, right, Dean Garnett has not been submitted in 9 years. It's been the knockouts that have gotten him recently. Obviously, Badis knocking him out in the PFL Europe Championship fight in 2025. Lewis McGrillen knocking him out in September of 2024 as well. He's been, again, knocked out I won't say quite easily, 44 seconds is quite easily. He's been knocked out early in fights as of late, but obviously the grappling has been where Dean Garnett has shined. So it's a big test for Ciryl Clarke. I mean, every next fight for Ciryl Clarke does feel like his next biggest test. This is a fighter who has yet to fight in the PFL cage. He's fought only in Bellator so far, even though technically in 2024 it was Bellator, but just ran by PFL. Never forget the final Bellator card of all time, headlined by Sarah Collins and Leah McCourt. Oh man, just why? Of all fights, that'd be the last one. You couldn't have given us, I don't know, you couldn't have given us a Corey Anderson fight on the way out. It was Sarah Collins and Leah McCourt, the final ever PFL card, or Bellator card, excuse me. Anyways, Ciryl Clarke does fight on that card. He beats Tomas Gronval. Again, technically a Bellator fight, but obviously under the PFL banner. But this is by far his next toughest task, and Dean Garnett's a good fighter, obviously, has made runs in PFL Europe before. I think Clarke's going to be able to control him, and I think Clarke's going to be able to win the fight. It's just a matter of does he find the submission or not. I'm going to go no. I think Ciryl Clarke's going to win a decision. I think he out-grapples Garnett. I think he out-wrestles Garnett. Again, though, asking for a submission against a guy who is really fundamentally skilled on the ground in Garnett is a lot out of Clarke. I'm going to go Ciryl Clarke to win the bout, but again, I just don't think he's going to be able to find that finish. On to our next fight. It is the feature bout in the light heavyweight division as Tyson Pedro makes his PFL debut as he takes on the former PFL light heavyweight champion in Duvajan Yagshimuradov. Man, okay, PFL wants to make sure that one of their guys beats a former UFC fighter. That's what this is. Okay, Duvajan Yagshimuradov will knock out Tyson Pedro in the very first round. I believe so. Now, I know Pedro's actually been kind of difficult to finish in his entire career, and the Pedro career is interesting to say the least. He got cut from the UFC / left the UFC after he lost to Vitor Petrino back in March of 2024. I thought he was done with mixed martial arts, obviously, at the time. Instead, he goes and fights in boxing, has a boxing bout in 2025, I believe, in Australia. The guy did officially retire. Okay, I didn't know if that was a figment of my imagination or not. He did retire after the Vitor Petrino fight. Like, I oddly remembered him in the Apex taking off the gloves, and it was a co-main event, Rozenstruik Gaziv. Oh, I'm okay. Yeah, I was in an Aritzia watching this fight. Okay. Oh, that brings back some memories. Anyways, so, like, I remember watching that fight. I was like, okay, because I wasn't sure if Pedro actually retired or not, but now it's all coming back to me, okay? I was eating some Auntie Anne's pretzels at a Aritzia watching Tyson Pedro lose to Duvajan Yagshimuradov. Not Yagshimuradov, he's going to lose to Yagshimuradov this week, losing to Vitor Petrino. So he retires from mixed martial arts, and then he goes and boxes, and now we're back in the PFL. We're back fighting him, maybe we're fighting in the PFL. This is not the fight you want. Yagshimuradov is good. Just because you lose to Corey Anderson, again, Corey Anderson's a good fighter. Corey Anderson, light heavyweight champion in the PFL. He's been chasing, and he still looks like he's looking like he's really wants that fight at heavyweight for a trilogy bout against Vadim Nemkov. We'll see if he gets it. But Yagshimuradov hits hard, man. Watch the Impa Kasanganay fight. Impa's great. Impa, again, war fighter, I get it. Striking defense, not the best for Kasanganay. Shilobo, though, is a fun fighter. And Duvajan gets Impa out of there in the first round of the championship fight in 2024. Impa was the reigning champion. He was the 2023 champion looking for back-to-back. Impa was a favorite in that bout, and Yagshimuradov put him away. It was a great run in 2024 for Duvajan, right? Beats Jakob Neto, who's the PFL Europe champion at the time. Simon Byung win by decision. He beats Rob Wilkinson, former champion, and then obviously knocks out Impa for the actual title. Only one fight in 2025, lost a 5-round decision to Corey Anderson. It was a rematch of their fight in Bellator back in 2020, so not an unexpected L from Yagshimuradov, but now you get Tyson Pedro, a guy that's going to stand right in front of you. Pedro, we'll see if he grapples. Again, Pedro early in his career when he came into the UFC was primarily a grappler, submitted Khalil Roundtree in his first ever fight in the UFC. But became more of a striker as his career went on. The Ike Villanueva win, the Harry Hunsucker win, the Pleasure Man Anton Turkalagi fight. God, wow, they gave him some really easy fights in the UFC. Villanueva, Hunsucker, Turkalagi, Pleasure Man. Lose to Bukowskis and Petrino, but then he retires, now he's back in the PFL. I don't get this one. Yagshimuradov beats a guy who hasn't fought in mixed martial arts in 2 years in the first round by knockout. Oh, Tyson Pedro had a boxing fight. I don't care. He fought once in boxing against Timur Khan, who was 17-0 at the time, but I don't know what, or 17-1 at the time. I don't know how to treat, though, boxing records. I know nothing about boxing, I'll be honest with you. Like, in terms of, I don't know who these prospects are. I'm going Yagshimuradov, okay? I think it's a spot where you should be able to win. Tyson Pedro was kind of falling off a cliff at the end of his UFC career, I thought. I thought they kind of kept him afloat because of the easy fights he was getting. I mean, again, when Tyson Pedro came back in post-COVID in 2022, the fights they gave him, Villanueva, Hunsucker, Turklagi. Yeah, obviously he wins those bouts. He fought half-competent opponents in Bukowskis and Petrino. He loses. I'm going Duvlajan Yagshimuradov to win the fight by first-round knockout against Tyson Pedro. Yagshimuradov will press forward. Pedro doesn't fight particularly well off the back foot, and Yagshimuradov is going to put him down and knock him out. On to our co-main event, we go to a matchup between Rhys McKee and Alex Lohore in the welterweight division. It's an ultimate CTE fight, so here we are. No, it should be fun. Should be really fun. Someone should get knocked out, but the last time I said that about a mixed martial arts fight, we got Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. Last time I said, oh, we have a CTE fight, someone should get knocked out. Hopefully this one delivers. Welcome in Skeletor, Rhys McKee, who again doesn't really get knocked out. He just is a zombie. Michael Bisping, gave him that, or coined him the Irish zombie, and that's kind of what he is. The guy just keeps on walking forward. He takes damage really well. Axel Sola TKO'd him, but that was a body shot in September of 2025. And I'll tell you this, again, the potential's always been there to Rhys McKee. He's just had a really rough go of things in the UFC. 2 different stints in the promotion. First run in the UFC was in 2020. I remember when he got booked to fight Khamzat Chimaev, there was a clip out there of his manager telling him that he got signed to the UFC, and he found out in the clip he was fighting Khamzat, and McKee's expression went from, oh, great, to, oh. He lost to Chimaev, lost to Morono in a weird fight where his mouthpiece got stuck under the octagon for a whole 15 minutes. It was really odd. Won the Cage Warriors Championship, came back, fought Ange Loosa in his return fight. Ange Loosa looked phenomenal in that bout. I've never seen Ange Loosa fight so well ever in my life. That was absurd. To this day, when I think of Ange Loosa, I think about the performance he put on against Rhys McKee. That's his last win to date. But I mean, Ange Loosa hits Rhys McKee with 150 significant strikes in that fight. But what does McKee keep doing? Walk forward, walk forward, walk forward. He wins the final round in that fight. But regardless, Loosa, and that's the story of Loosa's career. 2 good rounds. 1.5 good rounds is asked for the rest of the fight. McKee then fought Chidi Njokuani in Atlantic City, New Jersey, lost a close split decision. I thought that was the right call. Beats Daniel Frunza, finally picks up a UFC win, and then runs into Axel Sola, expectedly loses the fight by 3rd round TKO. He's taken on Alex Lohore, who is a very experienced regional guy in France. Has 2 fights, in Bellator. Those came a while ago, though, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, those came back at Bellator 173 and 179 back in 2017. But this is a very experienced regional fighter in Alex Lohore. I watched him fight. It was Jvico Stominov in Brave. I just watched that fight for the first time. Alex Lohore drops this dude in the first round, and the dude's completely out, and the ref just stands there and makes Lohore hit him 6 additional times. It's crazy. One of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. Anyways, Lohore, good striker, is willing to throw one to get hit with one. And what I mean by that is he's just kind of willing to get into wars. He's kind of a rangy fighter. I will say, what's a good comp for him? He's like a less technical Sadibou C. And what I mean by that is Sadibou would get into some of these just point fighting fights, the classic, that was such a horrible way of describing things. But you get my point, right? It's just, Sadibou would just lead with his jab the entire fight. No, Lohore is going to go for it. And again, Lohore kind of built like Sadibou in terms of just, long, lanky guy. Obviously, where is Sadibou? Does Sadibou fight anymore? But Lohore takes a lot more chances than C does, right? He'll go for it, and he's willing to put himself into the fire to engage into a firefight and potentially put you out in a sort of back-and-forth exchange, which is right up Rhys McKee's alley. The difference is, though, Rhys McKee doesn't get knocked out. I've seen Rhys McKee take so much damage, and he keeps on walking forward. In a fight where these two guys should be trading the entire bout, it does favor McKee. Lahore's been knocked out 6 times, most recently back in KSW in 2024. Ended up winning a fight in Brave in 2025, and then recently fought in Karate Combat just in March of this year, and he lost by unanimous decision for the championship of Karate Combat against Elias Kamzin. I don't watch Karate Combat. I couldn't tell you, what's going on over there. But again, he's coming off an L. And again, there's a reason Lohore has lost 11 pro fights. Oh, by the way, he's 36 years of age. Everything does point to a victory for Rhys McKee and a knockout victory at that for McKee as well. I'm going first round KO for Skeletor / the Irish Zombie and Rhys McKee. He should be able to win the bout. Again, Lohore will be willing to fight a high-paced, crazy type fight. I do believe McKee, though, gets the better of him because McKee's able to take a punch. I don't know how well Lohore is going to be able to take damage from McKee in a back-and-forth type fight. That Lohore does want to fight, but I just don't think he's built for a win specifically against Skeletor. Give me Rhys McKee to win the fight by first-round knockout. On to our main event, we move to a matchup between the undefeated Darragh and J.J. Wilson at 155 pounds in the lightweight division. Real intriguing fight, I will tell you, because obviously the initial fight being Paul Hughes and J.J. Wilson. In comes the fellow Irishman and Darragh to take Hughes' spot. Kelly undefeated at 9-0, 6-0 in Bellator, 2-0 in the PFL, the 2 wins in PFL, Mike Hamill third-round submission victory, and a Bakhtiar Abdullayev first-round submission victory as well. The Abdullayev fight, pure domination. Takedown, finds the back, submission, fight over. The Mike Hamill fight, you see some striking, but obviously Darragh is persistent on the takedowns, ends up dragging Hamill down in the third round, takes the back. It's a face crank submission victory for Darragh. You know what Darragh is going to want to do. I don't think his striking is necessarily bad, but his wrestling is great. His back takes are really good. He's going to find ways to drag you to the ground, and he lives again on the canvas. He's a good grappler. He's a really good grappler and a good wrestler at that as well. Can J.J. Wilson keep the fight on the feet? J.J. Wilson coming off a fight where he fought potentially one of the best wrestlers in the PFL in general. I'm talking about Archie Colgan. By the way, where is Archie Colgan's title fight? Where is it? Archie Colgan was promised a title fight after he beat Mansoor Barnouai, but they made him fight J.J. Wilson again, and on top of that, he wins, but we don't want him to fight Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov will beat Archie Colgan. I just want to see, I want to see Usman have to fight an American wrestler in Archie Colgan. I think it'll be really interesting. Don't get me wrong. I think Nurmagomedov wins, but Colgan's gas tank is crazy. And speaking of Archie Colgan's gas tank, I don't know how J.J. Wilson survived the final 15 seconds. I thought Archie Colgan won every single round, I'll be honest with you. I know there's a little bit of, back and forth in the first round. Did Wilson do enough? Personally, I actually thought Colgan won all three. But that last 15-second exchange, and that was not an exchange. It's a takedown from Archie Colgan. He slams J.J. Wilson. And again, I can talk at length about Archie Colgan. I think that dude is such a phenomenal wrestler. I know his finishing potential is not that high at all, but I just really want to watch. I might be the only person in the world who wants to see it. I really want to see Archie Colgan, Usman Nurmagomedov. That's a fight that gets me really intrigued. I think Usman wins because I think Usman will be able to win on the feet in that fight. But I want to see it. I really want to see it. But Archie Colgan against J.J. Wilson, slams him with like 20 seconds left to go, and Archie Colgan just starts unloading with elbows, and I don't know how J.J. Wilson survives that. He looks like he's almost dead to rights, but somehow he survives, and obviously the fight goes to decision. Colgan obviously wins all 3 rounds. J.J. Wilson, prior to that, had beaten Mads Burnell. Now, Mads Burnell, again, is washed at this point of his career, but I will give J.J. Wilson credit. Gets the fight, drags the fight down with like 30 seconds to go, and like Colgan tried to do to him, J.J. Wilson lays it on Burnell at the very end of the fight, wins a late third-round TKO win in the PFL tournament back in 2025. He was supposed to fight Gadzi Rabadanov in the second round. Wilson got injured, so Rabadanov instead fought Kevin Lee. What was that, in Omaha, Nebraska, I think it was? But anyways, J.J. Wilson's put together a pretty decent Bellator career. All of his fights are under the Bellator/PFL banner. His only losses, Archie Colgan, and Gadzi Rabadanov back in 2022. The thing is, J.J. Wilson, again, had real struggles and he had a tough time wrestling Archie Colgan. Now, here's the thing. I think Archie Colgan would beat Darragh. I think Archie Colgan wins against Darragh likely 30-27. It's just, can Darragh replicate the game plan of Colgan? You have to be competitive enough on the feet against Wilson, do enough damage with your strikes, and obviously throw hard, because that's what Colgan does. He just unloads big power shots, and okay, I'm looking to wrestle. I'm going to level change. You're worried about my wrestling. Boom, I'm going to hit you with something over the top. Here comes an overhand. Boom, I'm going to level change, drop you on your head, wrestle you for the rest of the round. Again, I really like Archie Colgan. I think he's fun. And I know, again, he doesn't finish fights. I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Archie Colgan. I need to see him versus Usman Nurmagomedov. Regardless, or if not, send Colgan to the UFC. I would not mind seeing Colgan actually get a chance in the UFC. But anyways, Darragh, that's the game plan you need to follow. Be competitive enough on the feet and wrestle J.J. Wilson as much as possible. Take J.J. Wilson down, throw strikes in the ground, work on your ground and pound, and see if you can get a finish that way. I don't think he's going to finish Wilson, because if Colgan couldn't do it, and yes, Colgan was seconds away and a couple strikes away at the very end of that third round of doing it against J.J. Wilson. I get it. I'm not going to expect to finish out of Darragh Kelly. It's a major step up, do not get me wrong, going from Bakhtiar Abdullayev to J.J. Wilson. And yes, this is potentially the best striker that Darragh Kelly's ever seen in his career. J.J. Wilson will try to out-volume. He's a tough guy, very tough, and the PFL will let you know that. They've spoken at length about how tough he is, especially after the Colgan fight. But my rule of thumb always on that is, if a MMA promotion is, and if MMA promotion is saying this about you, and your overall, that's what people say about you, the fans think of you, they think, oh, you're just a tough guy. Usually that means you lose a lot, but you're competitive. That's kind of how I feel like this fight's going to go. I think Wilson's going to have his moments in the feet, but I think ultimately those level changes and the takedowns and the wrestling out of Darragh Kelly is going to push him across the finish line. I'm going with the Irishman and Darragh Kelly to win at home. It's a much more difficult fight, obviously, compared to his originally scheduled bout against Sergio Cossio, but I do think he pulls off the win. I don't think he's going to be able to get a finish. I think Wilson, who again, is not a horrible grappler. He's not at all. His jiu-jitsu is actually not that bad. It's his wrestling that I really fear for him in this fight. And maybe I'm putting too much in him getting taken down at will by Colgan, because Colgan's just really good. But I think, Maz Burnell took him down in the first round too in their fight. So I think Darragh Kelly's going to be able to get those takedowns in this bout. Again, I think he'll be competitive. I think Wilson's going to have moments. I think Wilson will have spots where he, scrambles and wins and reverses Darragh Kelly like he did against Mads Burnell, where he took over the fight in the second round. But ultimately, I think Darragh Kelly's just going to do more. And I think Darragh Kelly is going to be able to win 2 rounds. And I think he wins the fight. I'm going to go Darragh Kelly. If the fight's close, by the way, it's in Ireland. It likely goes in the direction of SPG Ireland's own Darragh Kelly. I'm taking both Kelly and Clarke to remain undefeated on this card. And the biggest fight and the biggest win of Darragh Kelly's career comes on Thursday in Belfast, Northern Ireland against J.J. Wilson. I'm going with the undefeated Irishman by unanimous decision. Folks, that'll do it for our PFL Belfast full card predictions. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video and comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back in 2 weeks for our PFL Sioux Falls predictions with Logan Storley and Florim Zindili in the main event. Whatever. We'll be back in 2 weeks for that. UFC every single week on the channel. Predictions on Sundays. Best bets on Thursdays. Make sure to join us for those. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba, forever.